At 3 in the morning, the cul-de-sac sounded like a whale coughing. Water roared up from the storm drains, trash cans surfed past mailboxes, and at the center of it all stood Sandra Belfont, bathrobe flapping, curlers askew, mascara racing down her cheeks, screaming at a geyser that used to be her hydrangeas. The floodlight caught a glint of something mangled beside the curb, the smashed shell of my little neighborhood pump station. Her shoe floated by like a tragic canoe. A garden gnome bobbed past looking more dignified than she did. My name is Raphael Calder, but everyone calls me Rafe. I live on Willow Court in a development called Maple Strand, a place where the HOA fines you if your Christmas lights express too much personality. I'm a quiet guy. I do remote software work, make espresso at 6 in the morning, keep my lawn at exactly 2 inches, and I have a hobby I never advertise: fixing small-scale infrastructure. Last year I installed a discrete sump and pump station in the right-of-way swale beside my driveway, with a city permit, to stop the corner from pooling every time it rained. The installation took me 3 weekends and cost about $2,000 of my own money. It worked beautifully. Water that used to turn the intersection into a wading pool now drained efficiently into the storm system. Then Sandra, our HOA president and self-appointed storm czar, decided it clashed with the architectural vision. She sent letters that smelled like lemon-scented tyranny, each one more aggressive than the last. The escalation began with citations for unauthorized industrial machinery. I responded with copies of my permit, highlighted in yellow. Then it was audible mechanical ambience, which was her fancy way of complaining about the pump's whisper, a sound you could only hear if you stood directly over it and held your breath. After that came improper hydrologic personality. I didn't even know water could have personality, but apparently mine did, and Sandra hated it. She started a campaign. She patrolled at dawn with her clipboard, taking photos through my hedges, narrating dramatic monologues to Facebook. Some people bring blight with motors, she posted, with a close-up shot that made my pump station look like a supervillain's lair. The post got 43 angry face reactions from people who had never even seen the pump. She trespassed to measure the pump housing with a pink tape measure that said "Girl Boss" on the side. I watched from my window as she crouched in my swale, measuring and remeasuring like she was gathering evidence for the International Court of Drainage Justice. When I posted the signed permit from the city engineer to the neighborhood group, complete with the official seal and the signature of the municipal stormwater director, she declared the permit a forgery and told everyone I was diverting water onto neighbors for profit. Profit from moving rain. The woman had lost her mind. She started a petition to have me investigated for environmental crimes. 17 people signed it, mostly people who lived on the other side of the development and had never experienced flooding in their lives. Sandra printed the petition on cardstock and presented it to the city engineer's office. They politely told her that permits don't get issued without inspections and that my installation had been approved, inspected, and logged into the municipal infrastructure database. She told them they were part of the problem and stormed out, according to the clerk who later told me the story over coffee. The threats escalated. Sandra sent me a letter demanding I remove the pump within 72 hours or face daily fines of $100. I sent back a letter from my lawyer explaining that she had no authority over permitted municipal infrastructure. She responded by organizing an emergency HOA meeting to discuss my crimes against neighborhood harmony. 23 people showed up. 19 of them asked why we were wasting time on a permitted drainage pump when the neighborhood playground still had a broken swing. Sandra shut down the meeting early, claiming people weren't taking infrastructure aesthetics seriously enough. On a Tuesday evening, while I was at a dentist appointment getting a crown replaced, Sandra made her move. She arrived with a borrowed sledgehammer, the kind used for demolition work, and 2 HOA board lackeys who filmed the whole thing like it was a reality show pilot. My doorbell camera caught everything. They pried open the housing with a crowbar, cut the power line with bolt cutters that left copper shavings scattered across my grass, and smashed the impeller into scrap metal. Sandra swung that hammer like she was trying to kill a dragon. Someone yelled, "Liberate the swale," like they were storming the Bastille. Another voice said, "This is for the neighborhood." The sound of metal crunching echoed down the street. A neighbor 2 doors down, Mrs. Chen, called the non-emergency line. Another neighbor, Derek, who works in environmental compliance for the state, called someone else, someone with more authority. 2 hours later, the city's stormwater inspector and a county floodplain officer arrived and took extensive photos of the shattered pump, the scattered debris, and the footprints trampled into my perfectly maintained turf. Sandra told them she was performing community maintenance with the confidence of someone who truly believed she was saving the neighborhood from hydraulic tyranny. She stood there in her athleisure wear, hands on hips, explaining that the pump was a nuisance and a blight and that she, as HOA president, had every right to remove unauthorized equipment. The county officer, a man named Patterson with the patience of a saint, asked for her contractor license. She presented a laminated HOA badge that said President in Arial font. He stared at it like she'd just handed him a coupon for a free oil change. Then he asked if she had authorization from the city to perform work on municipal equipment. She said she didn't need authorization because it was in the HOA's jurisdiction. Patterson wrote that down. He wrote down a lot of things. The city inspector took photographs from multiple angles, including close-ups of Sandra's shoe prints in the mud beside the destroyed equipment. Turns out the little pump was part of a pilot partnership with the city. My permit came with a specimen tag and a data logger the county uses to study runoff patterns and test green infrastructure solutions. By destroying it, Sandra had just vandalized municipal equipment and destroyed county research data worth thousands of dollars. Paperwork moved faster than stormwater after that. The HOA's insurance company refused coverage for voluntary acts of infrastructure aggression. The city issued a notice of violation and a bill with multiple commas in it. The county flagged her for interference with drainage features and destruction of environmental monitoring equipment. And because Sandra had posted the entire demolition to the HOA Facebook group, complete with captions like "Bye Bye Swamp Motor" and hashtag Neighborhood Heroes and a selfie of her holding the sledgehammer like a trophy, proof wasn't hard to find. Her own video evidence had timestamps, GPS coordinates, and 37 thumbs-up reactions from people who were about to regret clicking like. The county attorney's office subpoenaed the footage. Sandra tried to delete the post. Too late. 16 people had already shared it. Then the storm arrived. First one of the season, fat and lazy but relentless, the kind that settles in and refuses to leave. It rained for 6 hours straight. My corner usually stayed dry thanks to the pump. Without it, the swale backed up within the first hour, then the drain clogged with leaves and debris, then the street became a reflective misery river aimed directly at Sandra's rancher at the end of the cul-de-sac. Water lapped across her perfect pavers, the one she'd had installed last spring in a herringbone pattern that cost more than my car. It crept into her garage, soaking cardboard boxes and kissing the baseboards she'd just had painted in a color called Coastal Serenity. She stood in the doorway wailing at the sky, trying to redirect water with a leaf rake like Moses armed with a salad fork. Neighbors gathered on their porches with coffee, watching the show. Someone brought popcorn. The county truck rolled by at a dignified 3 miles per hour. Patterson, the floodplain officer, looked at the tide line climbing her mulch beds and wrote something in a notebook with the serenity of a monk documenting the fall of Rome. He didn't smile, but his eyes had a certain glimmer. The HOA board lackeys filmed again, but this time the video had live commentary from the neighbors. "Karma has hydraulics," someone said. Another voice added, "Maybe she should have left the pump alone." The video went viral in the local community forums within 20 minutes. Repairs came with conditions. Sandra was removed as HOA president pending training and remediation, which turned into a permanent ban from any maintenance-related committee for 5 years. The city installed a new, larger pump station, this one bright municipal orange with a padlock, a tamper alarm, and a handsome sign that read public stormwater equipment, "Do not disturb." The sign listed fines on a sliding scale that ended with a number that looked like a phone number. Sandra now organizes the community book swap where the only heavy lifting is shelving paperback thrillers about people who make terrible decisions. Her street no longer floods. She still flinches when sprinklers hiss. She crosses to the other side of the street when she sees me checking my mail. The city's bill arrived 3 weeks later. $17,400 for equipment replacement, labor, data loss, emergency response coordination, and restoration of the monitoring program. Sandra opened the envelope at the mailbox, and her face went the color of wet concrete. She tried to appeal, claiming she was protecting property values and acting in the best interest of the community. The city sent back a letter that was basically a professionally worded version of actions have consequences, with an itemized list of damages and a deadline for payment. The HOA board held an emergency meeting. The vote to remove Sandra as president was unanimous. When the gavel came down, she stood up, looked around the room at the people who used to nod at her every word, and said in a shaking voice, "This isn't over." But it was. It absolutely was.